Hey guys, welcome to a new and exciting saga that I'm starting today on Garry Kasparov, and he is a wonderful inspiration for the chess world. And I want to start with the Deep Blue game that he played. This was the first time a Grandmaster was beaten in chess from a supercomputer. That's why I wanted to show you. So a little bit about Deep Blue. Deep Blue was an IBM supported supercomputer. And these games were played in 1996, so it was pretty while ago, and it was initial phases of the development. And let's just check out the game. This is Deep Blue with the white pieces, and Garry Kasparov has the black pieces. We have E4 as an opening, and now C5, the Sicilian defense on the board. Now we have C3 and D5. This is again the Alpine variation, and Garry Kasparov is pretty familiar with this variation as well. So we have E takes D5 and Queen takes D5. Garry pretty early in the game gets his queen out. So we have D4, immediately pushing the pawn to the center, and this pawn is now nicely contesting the center as well. And we have knight to F6, simply developing move, not really capturing with this pawn. Because then white will have a nice d pawn and it will be isolated for the rest of the game, so it's completely fine position and it has been played before. We have knight to F3 and bishop to G4. We have bishop to E2. Once this knight was pinned, the Deep Blue just unpinning this knight and getting rid of any weaknesses that he might have. Also, another fact that I forgot to mention, that this game was played in the standard time control, which back then was 2 hours for 40 moves, something like that. So after this we have E6 and H3, asking what do you want to do with this bishop. Either you have to go back, and then you can also play G4, push the bishop even further back. Or you could just put your bishop here on H5, and then whatever white decides to do, again play G6 later. We have bishop to H5 and now castles by white. So now definitely he's not going to push this pawn, because that would ruin the pawn structure, or it would make it weaker around the king. Now we have knight to C6 and bishop to E3. We have C takes D4 and now C takes D4 and bishop to B4. Interesting position this, because this is a novelty. Usually bishop goes on this E7 square or even the D6 square, but this position back then was a novelty, and from here the computer started thinking, because the computer had not analyzed the positions from here on, or the algorithms had not analyzed this position. So we have A3, kicking the bishop away immediately, and now bishop to A5, still keeping a nice control over this diagonal, not allowing this rook to come to E file and then control this file. Now we have knight to C3 and queen to D6. Can you imagine that this king can castle both the sides? But Garry Kasparov is playing a waiting game, and he's saying, okay, I'm not going to castle it so soon. What are you going to do next? The reason why he played this queen back is the next plan is to put his bishop here on C7, and now you're attacking this H2 square. Pretty wonderful square. As soon as you capture this knight here, there is no defense against queen to H2. This would be checkmate. So knight to B5 was immediately played, not allowing this bishop to come here to C7. A pretty interesting way to avoid this checkmate. We have queen to E7, retreating with the queen, since the queen was also attacked. And now it's always better to keep the queen away, because it's usually a piece that gets attacked more if it's on the center of the board, usually in the first few moves. We have knight to E5 and bishop takes E2, finally relieving of its duties, and Garry Kasparov decides to get rid of its bishop pair, at least a light square bishop. And we have queen takes e2, finally castles, the kingside castles by Garry. Now we have rook a to c1, grabbing the only open file on the board, and rook a to c8, Garry does the same thing. Bishop to g5, and now bishop to b6. After bishop to g5 was played, this knight is now pinned, and it cannot really move anywhere because you want your knight not only to protect, but to also, it's also a very nice attacking piece. But for now, it's kind of stuck, and you don't really want that to happen. You don't really want this knight to be stuck. So you either have to move the queen, you have to move the queen and then remove this knight from the square, or you have to kick away this bishop. We have bishop takes f6 instead, not allowing any of that to happen. Deep Blue, I forgot the name of the computer that was playing. Deep Blue decides to capture and relieve this knight of its duties, getting rid of the dark square bishop, and we have g takes f6, not queen takes f6, but g takes f6. Now the king is going to push back to h8. The rook is going to come here to g8, and it's going to nicely keep an eye on this g file. So pretty interesting move. Knight to c4. This pawn also attacked the knight, so you have to move the knight. Now you're also attacking this bishop. A pretty interesting position. Rook f to d8. Now saying, okay, if you want to capture, that's fine. I'll double up my pawns. I'm not really worried about that. And that's exactly what happens. Knight takes b6, a takes b6, and Garry in this position has two doubled pawns, and Deep Blue doesn't really have any. But even in this position, it's kind of equal position. We have rook f to d1, and now f5. Queen to e3, and queen to f6. All developing moves, trying to get control over a lot of attacks and some defenses against this pretty weak pawn here on d4. Mainly it's weak mainly because you cannot defend it by any of these pawns here on c or e file, because you don't really have any pawns as white, and you have to keep defending them with your pieces, minor and major pieces. So we have d5, immediately pushing the pawn, saying, okay, fine, if you want to capture, let's get some captures on the board, and let's just move on. I don't want to keep defending this pawn forever. And that's exactly what happens. Rook takes d5, rook takes d5, and now e takes d5. And this is the worst pawn structure you will find. Look at this. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 pawn islands. 6 pawns and 6 pawn islands. There is nothing you can do about it. And this white structure is better, but even in this position, it shows it's completely equal. So we have b3, and now king to h8. Like I said, he wants to put his king to h8, now bring his rook over here to g8, and then control this wonderful file. Now we have queen takes b6. Since the pawn was hanging, yeah, that's fine. You can grab it, that's completely fine. Rook to g8 now as planned, and queen to c5. Again, bringing the queen back into the game, now also attacking this pawn. d4, and this was the first real mistake by Garry Kasparov, and what he should have played instead was simply either rook to b8 or f4 would have been fine, because you don't really want this to be captured, because once you capture this, it is advantage black, and the advantage for black is you can even push f3, and now you are definitely losing this g pawn, because you can't really capture it, spin. You have to move your king away, or you have to play something like g4, and then there is an h-pawn that is ready to march forward and create some issues as well. So it's a complicated position. f4 should have been played, But instead Gary plays d4, which was the first real mistake in the game. So this is move 27, and till 27 moves, he played a perfect game. And Deep Blue, being a supercomputer, they found the perfect move, knight to d6. Simply going in for the attack, you're attacking two pieces, two pawns, and we have f4. Now he pushes f4, which should have already been played on the previous move. Knight takes b7, that eliminates two pawns from black's position, and now knight to e5, trying to get the knight into the game. We have queen to d5, because there was a threat of knight jumping into f3, so now you're just simply defending that threat, and there is nothing black can do. He doesn't really have an attack here. f3, pushing the pawn even further. Now you have g3, simply blocking any of the ideas. Now your knight cannot jump in because you have a pawn here, and there is no threat of this pawn being a nuisance because it's blocked by your f pawn. So not really anything that you need to worry. And you have knight to d3, attacking the rook, also keeping an eye on this f2 pawn. Rook to c7. Now there is a double attack on this pawn from the queen and the rook, and rook to e8. Simply trying to go after a mating idea here on e1, but it's not going to work out because a supercomputer is definitely going to see it. A human maybe not, but for a supercomputer it's really easy to understand these positions. We have a knight to d6, attacking this rook, asking what do you want to do with the rook, and rook to e1 check, king to h2, and knight takes f2. Finally getting rid of the knight, but this is completely fine, as we have knight takes f7 with check, king to g7, and now knight to g5 with check, king to h6, and rook takes h7 with check. And this was the final position on the board, as Gary resigned in this position because he knew what followed was not pretty, and he is definitely losing this position. So if you guys have some time, pause the video right here and try to find the winning combination for white. You think yourself as Deep Blue in 1996 and try to find this combination. I'm going to show it to you. You get king to g6, you have to get out of the check, and now you get queen to g8 with a check, king to f5, knight takes f3, and king to e4. You have knight takes e1, you have to give up some of the pieces because you want to prolong the checkmate, so this is the best defense, and now d3. Trying to push this pawn even further. Now rook to f7, attacking the queen. You're also attacking this knight over here. Queen to e6, queen moves, and now even though you cannot really capture because your queen is pinned, what you can play is rook to f4, and now you are attacking your queen. You're attacking the queen. So after king to d5, you get queen takes e6 with a check. King takes e6, and now rook takes f2, king to d5, rook to d2, king to d4, and rook takes d3 with a check. This is completely winning. It's a checkmate in 8 moves. So again, if you have some time, try to find it, because now you have 4 pawns, a rook and a knight against the lone king. So there is not much of a scope for you here. King to c5, g4, king to b5, g5, king to c5, g6, king to b5, g7, king to c5, g8 with the queen, king to c6, queen to e6 check, king to c7, rook to d7 check, king to b8, and queen to e8. This is checkmate. So this is exactly what Gary saw, and he could calculate all of this. So in this position on move 37, he resigned the game, and this was the first time a supercomputer defeated a world champion in the name of Garry Kasparov. So pretty amazing game, and there was a lot of talk going on in those days about all of this wonderful game. There were a lot of preparations. People were really confused as to how can a supercomputer defeat a human being, and that's exactly what Garry Kasparov thought as well. He didn't think that a supercomputer could defeat him, or a computer could defeat him. It wasn't really called a supercomputer back then. But that's exactly what happened, and a wonderful game nonetheless. And now that we know what computers can do, it wasn't really tough for the computer to defeat Garry. But this is a saga of 6 games played in 1996. This is the first game. I'm going to show you the remaining 5 games in the next 5 days. And if there is a good response for this, then I'm definitely going to show you a rematch that was played between Garry Kasparov and Deep Blue in 1997 as well. So, pretty interesting game. Stay tuned for all the exciting action that is about to happen. And I thank all my subscribers for subscribing to the channel. I greatly appreciate your support. That's all from this video. Namaste. See you next time.